to be live now on Facebook. All right. So today is Monday, December 18th, 2017. The year's almost over with. December's almost over with. So I wanted to follow up on the story that we reported here on the African History Network. It's regarding Tavis Smiley. Okay. And we did a story last week. I wrote an article about this. Tavis Smiley being suspended by PBS, having his show suspended by PBS. It showed Tavis Smiley on the public broadcasting system. I wrote an article December 15th, 2017 about this. So that was last week, Friday, I think it was. And he went on Good Morning America this morning to discuss the suspension and him defending himself also. Okay. So I want to talk about that some. So Variety magazine broke the story last week, Wednesday, December 13th, 2017. Okay. And everybody share this broadcast on your own Facebook page. Invite your friends to tune in as well. All right. I'm Michael Imhotep, founder of the African History Network, host of the African History Network show. I'm a talk show host, researcher, lecturer, and writer. Had a suit on this morning. Those that saw our my Facebook Live broadcast, I was on TV here in Detroit, TV 33 WHPR. I was interviewed on Theo Broughton's show Feedback on TV 33. And we have it on our Facebook fan page, the African History Network, the broadcast. We talked about Tavis Smiley. We talked about the U.S. Senate debate, U.S. Senate election in Alabama. Doug Jones winning, African Americans mobilizing to put him in office. And we talked about Kwanzaa coming up as well. All right. So when we look at Tavis Smiley, okay, for those who haven't been following it, this is a continuation of the MeToo, the hashtag MeToo movement, right? And we've seen men in the past few weeks, and our audio's all right. We've seen men in the past few weeks go down because of sexual harassment allegations, whether it's Representative John Conyers out of Detroit, who had to retire, whether it's Harvey Weinstein, which really kicked this off. We've seen allegations. We've seen Representative Blake Farenthold out of Texas, who's a Republican congressman, paid $84,000 to settle a sexual harassment lawsuit. He's announced that he would not seek re-election. We saw Senator Al Franken. We saw Democrats, a growing number of Democrats call for his resignation. So a sitting U.S. senator resigned. We've seen Russell Simmons, allegations from about 10 women of sexual misconduct, rape, etc. Okay, so we've seen a number of different men, and Tavis Smiley is one of the latest ones. So last week in the article that I wrote, I said that Tavis Smiley, a longtime host of the Tavis Smiley Show on PBS, has had his show suspended by distributor PBS, public broadcasting system, on Wednesday, December 13th, 2017, because of an investigation into allegations of sexual misconduct with numerous quote unquote subordinates, as was reported by Variety.com. Now, Variety broke this story December 13th, 2017. They uploaded it 3:24 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Okay. And the name of the article from Variety is PBS Suspends Tavis Smiley Following Sexual Misconduct Investigation. Okay. So Tavis put a response on his Facebook page on Wednesday, December 13th, that night, around 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I'm going to play for you. It's about a minute and some change. I'm going to play for you what he said.
Hi, I'm Tavis. I was as shocked as you were to hear of PBS's sudden announcement regarding my television program. Let me say at the outset that I have the utmost respect for all women, and I certainly celebrate the courage of those women who've come forth of late to share their own truth. But let me also assure you that I have never groped, inappropriately exposed myself, or coerced any colleague in the workplace ever in my 30-year career. PBS launched this so-called investigation of me without ever even telling me about it. I only learned of this investigation because former colleagues, former staffers started to call me to tell me they were getting a phone call from some PBS investigator asking, number one, did Tavis ever make you feel uncomfortable in the workplace? And number two, can you give us other persons to call? Only after threatening a lawsuit did PBS investigators agree to sit down and talk to me for 3 hours. And even then, their minds must have been made up, because almost immediately after that session ended, this story broke in Variety. PBS investigators refused to look at any of my documentation, refused to talk to any of my current staffers, refused to give me the names of any of my accusers, and refused to give me any semblance of due process. It is clear that this has gone too far, and I, for one, intend to fight back.
Okay, let's see. It's
PBS overreacted, and they launched a sloppy investigation. It's time for a real conversation in this country about where the lines are, about how men and women can engage each other in the workplace. And I look forward to actively participating in that conversation.
all right. So that was on his Facebook page. That was on Tavis Smiley's Facebook page, Tavis Smiley. You can follow him on Facebook. All right. It's been viewed about 1 million times. Been viewed about 1 million times since then. Okay. In less than a week. All right. So this morning he was on Good Morning America. All right. And he was interviewed, and ABC News has an article about it. ABCnews.com has an article about this. We're going to go to that in just a second here. Okay, so Tavis Smiley fires back at sexual misconduct allegations. Tavis Smiley fires back at sexual misconduct allegations. Okay, so and PBS has responded to his interviews, to his interview also, which is extremely important to note also. So we're going to cover all of that. All right. Just a second here. Okay. So PBS, as we said, PBS suspended the distribution of Tavis's show. A PBS spokesperson said PBS engaged an outside law firm to conduct an investigation immediately after learning of troubling allegations regarding Mr. Smiley. This investigation included interviews with witnesses as well as with Mr. Smiley. The inquiry uncovered multiple credible allegations of conduct that is inconsistent with the values and standards of PBS, and the totality of this information led to today's decision. So this was the statement from PBS last week, Wednesday. This is in the article that just came out about 3 hours ago from ABC News. Now, during a live sit-down interview this morning on Good Morning America, Tavis Smiley, who's 53 years old, said, quote, "I've never groped, I've never coerced female staffers into sexual relations in 30 years over 6 different networks." He went on to say, "I celebrate and applaud these women who had the courage to come out. But he is concerned that because of the recent climate, quote, people end up being guilty simply by accusations," end quote. Now, for those of you who've been following our broadcast, been following our shows, etc., you know that I have been saying that we should believe the women, but you have to have due process. You need to follow the whatever process is in place. We need to believe the women, and then you have an investigation. You have an investigation because you believe the women. Okay. So when it came to Representative John Conyers here in Detroit, I was at the rally for support and the call for due process for Representative John Conyers, the Dean of the Congress. Okay. And I said that in Congress, in the U.S. Senate and in the U.S. House of Representatives, there is a process for investigations. So I said Representative John Conyers should have due process. U.S. Senator Al Franken should have due process. Representative Blake Farenthold out of Texas should have due process. All of them should have due process. All right. The majority of allegations that women bring forth are true, but there's a smaller percentage that are false. For whatever reason, there's a smaller percentage that are false. Oftentimes, the smaller percentage that are false, when they're reported, it may have been for revenge, it may have been after money. This taints the larger percentage of women's claims that are true, but all of them need to be investigated. Okay. So when we look at Tavis's interview this morning, once again, Tavis said he said, because of the recent climate with the hashtag MeToo movement, which was actually started by an African-American woman back in 2006. They didn't have hashtags then, but Tarana Burke, out of African-American female activist out of Philadelphia, started that MeToo movement. It's been co-opted by white women now. Okay. So when Time Magazine a week or two ago had the Person of the Year cover story, it was about this MeToo movement, and they had different people on the cover, but the founder of the movement was not on the cover. African-American woman, Tarana Burke, right? So Tavis Smiley said people end up being guilty simply by accusations. We just saw with Nellie. Nellie was accused of rape. It appears that now it's been determined that that's not true. Okay. And Nellie's is fighting to clear his name. Okay. So Smiley had relationships with women while working on the Tavis Smiley show. He said he said this, and he added that he can prove that these were consensual relationships. He said he could prove it with letters, cards, gifts, and certainly photographs. All right. And I talked about this in the previous video I did on this. He is the owner of his company. He's the owner of his company, TS Media. He has even though he's the CEO of the company, he has a management team that actually runs his company. There's a power dynamic that comes in when you're the owner of the company and you enter into relationships with subordinates, sexual relationships with subordinates. Okay. He said in the interview this morning, he said, according to the handbook, the human resources policies, the employee handbook, is not romantic relationships with coworkers is not encouraged, but is not forbidden. Okay. But when you are the owner of the company, even though in your mind you may feel that everything's on the up and up and that everything's fair and balanced, it could cause different power dynamics. It can cause different tension in the workplace when you have these romantic relationships, because other people are going to find out about it. Number one, other coworkers. Two, even though you don't give preferential treatment to the person that you are romantically involved with, it can be perceived incorrectly by other employees that this person is getting preferential treatment. All right. And another way to put it, all the women in America, you got to be in a relationship with somebody who works for you. There's too many problems can happen there. Even if you have the best intentions and everything's on the up and up, too many problems can happen there. All right. So I don't recommend that. Okay, so so the article goes on to say Tavis noted that one woman with whom he had a romantic relationship still works for him now. Okay, Tavis said, "I certainly understand people can have a viewpoint. Any consensual relationship in the workplace is wrong, but there are also other points of view on this. Okay, while we don't encourage them, we don't forbid them." This he's talking about in his company based upon their employee handbook. Now, romantic relationships between colleagues is one thing in the workplace if it is not forbidden by the company, by the company's policies. That's different than romantic relationships with the owner of a company and a subordinate. That's not the same thing as colleagues. You all are not colleagues. You're not on the same level. That's entirely different. Even though you may have the best intentions, it may not look good. All right. So Tavis went on to say that during those relationships that he had with people who worked for him, he never instructed his team, his management team that runs his company, on any employment matters, hirings, firings, anything like this, promotions, anything like this. He said, I never gave any favoritism upward or downward. So Tavis Smiley also pushed back on claims that he has created a hostile work environment. And he said, quote, I have feelings, I have emotions. And when the ball gets dropped, okay, he said he has to pick it back up. All right. The environments are intense at times. I'm not an angry black man. And this notion of a hostile environment just doesn't fit. Now, after the investigation by PBS, Public Broadcasting System, which distributes his TV show, he's not employed by PBS, but they distribute his show. After the investigation, Tavis Smiley said he was unsure whether or not he would return to PBS. Now, he said that PBS made a huge mistake here. They need to fix it. They need to correct it. Okay. And he said, I'm going to do anything to protect my reputation. Now, what's very interesting here and was really odd is that you have the suspension of his show. You have Walmart, AtlantaBlackStar.com reported yesterday, and it's in the article here from ABCnews.com, Good Morning America, that Walmart has backed. It was an advertiser on his show. They've backed away. Walmart, which had been a sponsor of Smiley's talk show and an upcoming touring theatrical show that Tavis Smiley was going to have, has cut ties with him. While this investigation plays out, Walmart said, we take these issues very seriously and are troubled by the recent allegations. OK, as a result, we are suspending our relationship with Mr. Smiley pending the outcome of the PBS investigation. So you can check out this article from AtlantaBlackStar.com. Walmart book distributor suspend ties with Tavis Smiley pending results of investigation. And then we see his book publisher, Hay House, Hay, Hay House, which distributes the Smiley Books imprint, said that all Smiley projects were, quote unquote, on hold pending an internal review. Now, Tavis Smiley had planned in September to release Leading by Listening, Connecting Through Conversation to Transform Your Relationship and Your Business. OK, so what's interesting is with this investigation going on with PBS and he in a dispute with PBS, I'm not sure why he would do this interview and not have his attorney present. Because usually in a situation like this, somebody may do an interview with a major news outlet, but they have an attorney present. Tavis Smiley didn't have an attorney present. I hope that doesn't come back to hurt him. OK, I hope that doesn't come back to hurt him. So after this interview with Good Morning America this morning, which aired in the I think in the 7 a.m. hour, I think this interview 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I think it aired in that first hour in 7 a.m. hour. PBS responded to Tavis Smiley's appearance on Good Morning America in a written statement. They said, quote, Tavis Smiley needs to get his story straight, end quote. This is PBS's response. Tavis Smiley needs to get his story straight. They said, first, today on Good Morning America, Mr. Smiley acknowledged he had multiple sexual encounters with his employees, then struggled to recall the number of current employees with whom he has had sex. OK, well, he didn't struggle. He said there's one that still works. He had to think about it for a minute, but he said there's one that still works there. OK, he wanted it may be more of a situation where he wanted to make sure he's accurate because millions of people are watching this. Now, they go on to say this contradicts his Facebook post from last week, where he cited only one previous relationship with an employee. Mr. Smiley even told viewers, quote, I don't know where your heart's going to lead you, PBS is certain that it should not lead to multiple sexual relationships between the owner of a company and subordinates over many years, particularly where employment decisions may be linked to sex. So once again, this is what I said. Even though you may have pure intentions and you have a management team that makes hiring decisions, firing decisions, promotions, things like this, when you are the owner of the company and you are engaged in subordinates, you don't have colleagues. They're all subordinates because you're the CEO, you're the owner of the company. It just looks bad, and you have to do a whole lot of explaining. And Tavis may have done more harm than good with this interview, because once again, he didn't have an attorney present. And in this statement from public broadcasting, the public broadcasting system, PBS, was probably at least partly crafted, or it was at least ran by their attorney before they released this statement. Okay. So this is why, once again, I don't understand why he did the interview and didn't have legal counsel present. Personally, I think that was a bad move. Not an attorney, known some. I think that was a bad move. So the statement from PBS goes on to say, second, Mr. Smiley claims he applauds women who have come forward, yet his company requires former and current employees to sign non-disclosure agreements. Witnesses who have bravely come forward to speak with the independent investigators retained by PBS report a fear of retribution for speaking out. PBS stands by its decision to respect the anonymity of those who are afraid to come forward publicly. Additional allegations are continuing to come to light since last week's announcement. Okay, let me repeat this last statement. This is the official statement from PBS in response to Tavis Smiley's interview this morning on Good Morning America, seen by millions of people, and Tavis did not have his legal counsel present sitting next to him during that interview. PBS said additional allegations are continuing to come to light since last week's announcement, which it appears to me that their investigation is not over with. They go on to say, in contrast, PBS has been consistent. PBS stands by the integrity of its investigation, which has been conducted by an outside firm with expertise in such matters. Mr. Smiley's own words today, coupled with the information discovered during the investigation, confirms PBS' decision to indefinitely suspend the distribution of Tavis Smiley, which is the name of his show on PBS, going into his 15th season, going into his 3,000th episode. All right. So, I'm not sure if Tavis expected PBS to respond so quickly. That's damaging. Okay. And all right, so we're back. We had some technical difficulties with the first segment. Not sure what happened with that. But we're back for part two. We're dealing with discussion, analysis of Tavis Smiley's interview this morning on Good Morning America, denying sexual misconduct allegations. And he said PBS has made a huge mistake. So it is Monday, December 18th, 2017. Once again, I'm Michael Imhotep, founder of the African History Network, host of the African History Network show. Monday, December 18th, so let's check the volume and everything. Everything is good. All right. So we're here for part two. So share this broadcast on your own Facebook page. Invite your friends to tune in also. I'm going to pin this information here. All right. So I was sharing with you the statements from Public Broadcasting System, PBS. So I think you missed some of that. So we'll go back and go over some of that, okay? So PBS responded to Tavis's interview this morning, all right? Check out this article from Good Morning America entitled, Tavis Smiley fires back at sexual misconduct allegations. PBS made a huge mistake. All right. So PBS said, now, once again, Tavis did this interview. Millions of people saw it, and he did not have an attorney present. Don't understand that. All right. Don't understand that. How's everybody doing today? And we'll have this broadcast on our YouTube channel also, Michael Imhotep. Be sure to visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Connects you with all our platforms. You can read my articles that I write. My DVD lectures are there if you want to order those. We have audio podcasts of our radio show there as well. Okay, so here's what PBS said. First, today on Good Morning America, Mr. Smiley acknowledged he has had multiple sexual encounters with his employees, then struggled to recall the number of current employees with whom he has had sex. This contradicts his Facebook post from last week, where he cited only one previous relationship with an employee. Mr. Smiley even told viewers, quote, "I don't know where your heart's going to lead you," end quote. PBS is certain that it should not lead to multiple sexual relationships between the owner of a company and subordinates over many years, particularly where employment decisions may be linked to sex. Now, once again, as I've said, you can have the best intentions. If you're the owner of a company, getting romantically involved with subordinates is not a good decision. That's not a good move. In this situation here, Tavis is the owner of his company, TS Media, his production company. He says he has a management team that runs the day-to-day operations. They do hiring, firing, they make those decisions. He said he's never instructed them on those type of decisions to make, promotions, etc. All right. But just the fact that you're the CEO of a company romantically involved in subordinates, because you don't have you don't have colleagues at that level. You have subordinates, unless they are co-owners of the company or something like that. Possible, right? It's not the case here. Secondly, PBS said Mr. Smiley claims he applauds women who have come forward, yet his company requires former and current employees to sign non-disclosure agreements. Witnesses who have bravely come forward to speak with the independent investigators retained by PBS report a fear of retribution for speaking out. PBS stands by its decision to respect the anonymity of those who are afraid to come forward publicly. Additional allegations are continuing to come to light since last week's announcement. Now, in contrast, PBS goes on to say, in contrast, PBS has been consistent. PBS stands by the integrity of its investigation, which has been conducted by an outside firm with expertise in such matters. Mr. Smiley's own words today, this interview he did this morning on Good Morning America and did not have an attorney present, Mr. Smiley's own words today, coupled with the information discovered during the investigation, confirms PBS decision to indefinitely suspend the distribution of Tavis Smiley. In that previous statement, the second statement, PBS said additional allegations are continuing to come to light since last week's announcement, which tells me that this investigation is not over with. Okay. And then if we look at his statement from last week, December 13th, Wednesday, December 13th, on his Facebook page, Tavis Smiley, he stated, if having a consensual relationship with a colleague years ago is the stuff that leads to this kind of public humiliation and personal destruction, heaven help us. Okay. He said, this has gone too far, and I, for one, intend to fight back. So it appears this is the statement that PBS is saying. he made last week, Wednesday, on Facebook, but contradicted himself today, talking about multiple or more than one sexual relationship with subordinates. But when I look at this statement, if having a consensual relationship with a colleague years ago is the stuff that leads to this kind of public humiliation and personal destruction, heaven help us. To me, he's just giving an example of one incident, but he's not saying he's only had one. Okay, that's the way I interpret that. The article goes on to say the PBS investigators refused to. Okay, so he talked about that. They refused to review any of his personal documentation. So we'll see how this plays out. He claims he's innocent, and he's fighting this. If he does any more interviews, he needs to have his legal counsel present. Okay. But as I said before in the previous broadcast, it's not a good idea to be romantically involved with subordinates. You may have the greatest intentions. You may be very fair, but other employees of that company may not perceive it that way. They may perceive that the person you are romantically involved with is getting preferential treatment, etc. It could cause a bad work environment. It could cause retribution, all different types of things like that. Okay, so we'll see how this turns out. Let's go to some of your comments here. Kang said, "I can hear the accuser testimony." Tavis said, Tavis said, "I look like a stack of pancakes. I need some syrup." Pamela said, "Innocent until." Well, in a situation, but in a situation like this, it's not going to go to court. They do. PBS has clauses in the distribution agreement between PBS and TS Media, Tavis Smiley's company. So it's laid out how they will handle certain things like this. And this is an investigation with an outside firm to investigate these types of matters. Stephanie said one of the ladies still works for him. He said on GMA. Yeah. So one of the ladies he was involved with, still works. So he said one of them still works for him. But at the same time, he also said in the Facebook Live broadcast last week, the Facebook post, he said that none of his current employees or staff were interviewed by investigators, only former employees and staff. All right, let's see. Sheva said Tavis knocking everybody off, however, it was consensual, so what is the problem? Well, that's what he says is consensual. They do an investigation because of complaints that they were getting, because of allegations. They have to do an investigation. Yvonne said, I don't understand Tavis Smiley not having an attorney either. I thought he would have been smarter than that. Pamela Day said, so nervous, PBS should have given him that knowledge of having an attorney present. PBS should have given him that knowledge. Not sure what you're trying to say. All right. So we're going to get out of here. I'm going to do another broadcast dealing with some statements from Doug Jones and deal with articles of impeachment and things like this, because these statements of Doug Jones regarding Trump and not asking Trump to resign from office because of sexual misconduct. People don't understand politics. So I'm going to do a separate broadcast on that. Let's see here. Somebody said, Mr. Imhotep, Pamela said, what intentions were acceptable in his situation? What do you mean, Pamela? He should have just waited until his lawyer was present, period. Well, I don't know if his attorney was on the way or what. Was his attorney on the way and they had to do the interview right then? I haven't seen anything saying that his attorney was on the way. All right. And those, while you post some more comments here, those in the Atlanta area, I will be in Atlanta for Kwanzaa, Friday, December 29th, 6 p.m. to about 9 p.m. at the Shrine of the Black Madonna in Atlanta. We're doing a screening and discussion of Black Friday Part 2, the new documentary I'm in, Black Friday Part 2, Living Legacy World Tour. And I'm on the panel as well. So we'll have that flyer at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com today. And those in the Los Angeles area, I will be at the Christ Unity Center speaking on Saturday, December 30th. That's 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. And Sunday, New Year's Eve, December 31st, 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. also. I'm the keynote speaker that Saturday for the Kwanzaa celebration. My presentation is called What is Kwanzaa? Reconnecting African Americans to African Culture for Self-Empowerment in the Donald Trump Era. And you can order the presentation from our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. The second day, I will do a presentation on African American resistance in the era of Donald Trump, voter suppression, reparations, and how elections have consequences. Okay, and we have that presentation at our website also, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. All right. Okay, guys, so look, we're going to get out of here, and I'll be back shortly. We had to deal with this Doug Jones, some comments from Doug Jones also, because people don't understand politics, all right? Okay, hey, remember at the African History Network, we focus on, also be sure to sign up for our email newsletter. Text the word Kemet, K-E-M-E-T. Text the word Kemet, K-E-M-E-T to 22828 to sign up for our email newsletter, okay? We send out a few email newsletters throughout the week. Also, Kwanzaa in Detroit. Kwanzaa in Detroit. I'll be at the Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History for the Kwanzaa celebration, the first 3 days of Kwanzaa, December 26th through the 28th. December 27th, the second day of Kwanzaa, Kujichagulia, which is on a Wednesday, I will be the keynote speaker for the Kwanzaa celebration organized by Malcolm X Grassroots Movement. For more information, you can go to theright.org, and I'll have a vendor table there all the first 3 days. It's free and open to the public. Bring the family. We know Kwanzaa celebrates family, community, and culture. Family, community, and culture. Okay, these are the 3 basic principles that Kwanzaa is based upon. So I'll be the keynote speaker here in Detroit also once again. All right. Okay, hey, remember at the African History Network, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world, because right now it's correct wrong behavior. What you do for yourself, what you do to yourself, and what you allow other people to do to you is based upon what you think about yourself. What you think about yourself is based upon what you have been taught about yourself. What you've been taught about yourself is based upon everything you've read, heard, and seen about yourself. So right now, let's correct wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. We'll talk to you next time. Please. Peace. Yes, Pamela, I live in Detroit.